Okay, well, good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar on ArcGIS GeoBIM. Thank you for joining today's session, whether you're watching it live with us now or on demand at a later date. The purpose of today's webinar is to introduce you to ArcGIS GeoBIM. You may have seen a number of announcements, social media posts, press releases over recent months and weeks promoting the release of ArcGIS GeoBIM, but maybe you haven't seen it in action. And that's what we're going to show you today. Before we get started, I'd just like to introduce myself and my partner in crime today. My name is Craig Evenden. I head up the architecture, engineering and construction team here at Esri UK, and I'm joined by my colleague Robin Appleby. Robin is our technical pre-sales lead for AEC, and it's Robin who will be doing a lot of the heavy lifting and shifting today, showcasing GeoBIM in all its glory. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we take a look at today's agenda. It's important to say this session is being recorded, so don't worry about taking notes. You'll be able to watch it back at a later date. It's also worth saying that we are running this webinar from Microsoft Teams. This is a first for Esri UK. So we've recently moved across from our old platform. So myself, Robin, and all of you are guinea pigs today. So please bear with us if there's any hiccups along the way, but hopefully everything will run nice and smoothly. Also, if you have any questions from anything that you may see during today's webinar, please post them in the chat window. We're also supported by our marketing colleague, Ali Hughes, who is our AEC marketing executive within the team. Ali will be collating all of the questions and we'll do our best to answer all of these at the end. Okay, so just taking a look at today's agenda for the webinar, I'm going to start with just a brief look back at the journey that we've been on with Autodesk over the past 5 years and some of the key milestones that we've taken along the way. Then we're going to introduce GeoBIM before Robin shows you ArcGIS BIM in action. We'll then take you through just some of the licensing and how you can gain access to GeoBIM before closing out with some of the resources and signposts to up and coming events taking place over the next few weeks. Obviously, as I'm sure many of you are aware, we've got our annual conference less than 4 weeks away. So I'd encourage you to stay at the end and we can just kind of signpost you some of the sessions at the conference. So just want to pause for a moment and look back at the history of Esri and Autodesk partnership. As I'm sure many of you know, we entered into a strategic partnership with Autodesk back in 2017. And many of you may be asking, well, why has it taken nearly 5 years for the first fully fledged product to be released? And I guess the answer to that is, well, there's a few answers really. We needed to understand, obviously, our markets. We needed to understand the CAD and BIM world better. Autodesk needed to better understand the GIS world. We needed to listen to our customers to ensure that what we develop is fit for purpose and help drive efficiencies and cost savings for our users. But I guess it's also important to remember that along that journey and during that time, we've added a great deal of capability and interoperability to the Esri system. ArcGIS Desktop, ArcGIS Professional, we've improved how you can ingest CAD files and BIM models. We've improved the way that you export those file types back to CAD to ensure that they retain their attribute data. We've further developed the Autodesk plugin, the freely available plugin for desktop. More recently, we've made IFC native to our desktop clients to improve the relationship and integration of our two systems. So we've been doing a lot along the way. I guess the concept of ArcGIS GeoBIM, it actually came out of a meeting between Carl Bass and Jack Dangerman back in 2016. So it has been a long time coming. The first demo prototype of something like GeoBIM integrating Esri and Autodesk cloud applications was actually built by Esri UK. It was our tech research team within Esri UK who built this product for Chris Andrews. Many of you may be aware of Chris Andrews, worked for Esri for a number of years, and he was one of the key driving forces in bringing together Esri and Autodesk. Over the years, we've seen many variations and demos of something like GeoBIM, from example, by our colleagues over at Esri, Germany. They created a really slick prototype for us for a conference one year. And then the very first version of GeoBIM was built by Stephen Brockwell's company for Autodesk customers. And that was demoed by Anthony Rentiera on stage at a user conference in San Diego in 2018. Esri then acquired Brockwell IT in 2019 to bring the whole thing together. And I guess fast forward through the pandemic, and this is where we land today with a fully fledged product called ArcGIS GeoBIM. So I'm just going to play a short video for you now just to introduce you to the product.
Any way you look at it, designing and building for the future means taking a broader view. To create smarter, sustainable infrastructure, cities and communities. Projects must be understood from more angles. At different scales. In wider context. This calls for smarter tools that deliver a holistic perspective. So far, that's been difficult and expensive, with data cobbled together from many siloed sources. But now there's ArcGIS GeoBIM. For the first time, multiple systems are connected within one web app that integrates all your data, streamlining how projects get done, using a location-based geographic approach that gives you the full picture. GeoBIM delivers a new foundation that connects Esri and Autodesk cloud platforms. It brings together GIS and BIM data, reducing complex data handling and file conversion. You can easily link maps, digital models, and project information for a truly integrated and holistic approach. You can monitor progress to see what's happening where, pinpoint issues and safety concerns, and resolve them quickly. Projects can be easily shared for team collaboration and stakeholder decision-making. Plus, dashboards can communicate project status to everyone. You can even put your entire portfolio of projects into a single GeoBIM system. Across cities, states, countries, or customers. So you can keep an eye on each one while managing them as a whole. ArcGIS GeoBIM. Put your projects on the map. Understand the big picture and get the perspective you need to meet the challenges of the future.
Okay, so as you've seen from the video, ArcGIS GeoBIM is a geo-enabled product built on ArcGIS and licensed for a user type extension. It delivers an innovative, map-centric web experience and lets you integrate and visualize GIS and BIM project data so that you can make coordinated design construction decisions with project stakeholders. So we're just going to delve into ArcGIS GeoBIM, and I guess it's important to say at this moment that obviously Robin and I, we represent the AEC team, and some of the examples that you're going to see today are AEC focused, but hopefully what you've seen from that video is that ArcGIS GeoBIM is relevant to any sector. So anyone joining from any sector today who is working with Esri and Autodesk workflows, hopefully will find ArcGIS GeoBIM relevant to them. So I'll pass over to Robin today to take a deeper dive into the product.
Thanks, Craig. So I guess the first thing I want to do is just position how the integration between the kind of world of GIS and the world of BIM and design works. And we very much see that the Autodesk world is where you do your detailed design. You look at the building information models, the design drawings, the CAD drawings, lots of rich, detailed content there. And GIS provides the context to that information. So you can understand where a building is in its landscape in the city, where other infrastructure such as drainage and water networks and utility networks relate to that. So we want to bring together these two worlds of BIM and GIS, or design and GIS. And as Craig was highlighting earlier, we have been making progress on this over a few years, working closely with Autodesk. So if we look at the left-hand side of this diagram here, we've kind of got the Autodesk world where there are a number of different desktop products such as InfraWorks, Revit, Civil 3D. And to improve collaboration within an organization, you might use Autodesk's Construction Cloud or BIM 360 to manage those files that are created through those desktop products and make them more accessible to other designers, engineers, project managers, etc. within your organization. On the right-hand side of the screen, we've got the GIS world where you might be using some of our desktop or mobile applications such as ArcGIS Pro or Field Maps to create data, maintain data, update it. And you might similarly be using our cloud products or on-premise server products, ArcGIS Online or Enterprise, to again manage that data and share it to a wider audience. But what happens if you want to use data from both the BIM world and the GIS world? So over the last few years, we've improved the integration by allowing you to bring in data from the Autodesk environment directly into desktop products such as ArcGIS Pro, or even into SiteScan, which is our drone management software. And on the flip side, Autodesk have enhanced their products, InfraWorks and Civil 3D, so that they can connect directly to ArcGIS Online or Enterprise and bring in GIS layers directly into those design products. But the downside of these current integrations is that you still need a desktop product. You still need to be a kind of professional user to be able to access and leverage these different data sets. So this is where GeoBIM starts to plug this gap, really. It allows for a cloud-to-cloud collaboration between these two environments without having to install desktop products, without having to be a professional user of either the Autodesk world or the ArcGIS world. So what we'll see is that we can then create a number of different web applications using ArcGIS GeoBIM to serve data out to all different types of user from within your own organization or potentially within stakeholder organizations that can access some of the data that's being created and managed in the ArcGIS world or the Autodesk world, but they can access it through a really simple user interface. And that's really what GeoBIM is all about, is providing that simple one view of your data from both worlds in one place. So I'm going to, in that moment, step through how we go about creating a GeoBIM project, but just to kind of explain it a little bit first. The starting point is really organizing your existing data. You will have information stored in ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise that you might want to relate to design drawings, Revit models, etc., that are stored within the Autodesk environment. But to do that effectively, you need to manage your data and organize it in a sensible structure in both of those environments. So we'll see that when we connect to Autodesk, we need to manage our project files correctly within there. We might also need to georeference some of the data within there so that we can fully leverage it within the GeoBIM environment. Once we've organized the data, we can then, as a power user within GeoBIM, set up the integrations between specific maps, scenes within the ArcGIS world and specific project files within the Autodesk world. So we can configure a number of different applications, and we can then choose who we want to share those with. And then our end users will just simply access that web application that's been built for them, that provides them access to the data that's relevant for their particular role or their particular geographic area of expertise. So let's now dive into GeoBIM in action and just have a look at a quick view of it before we understand a little bit more about how it's built. So this is an example of a viewer application that's been configured for me as an end user. You can see I'm signed into it, so it knows what level of access I have. And what we're seeing on the map are the extent of data sets that I have within my Autodesk environment. And if I open up the panel at the bottom, we can then start to see a list of the different documents that are in the Autodesk world, in this case in BIM 360. And I can search for a particular document of interest. So I'm going to search for information about the Civic Centre. I can find the document, and I can then ask the map to zoom to the extent of that particular drawing. And I can then separately open up that model in the Autodesk world on the right-hand side. So instantly we're seeing the benefit here, that we've got the geographic representation of where that drawing relates to, or that model relates to. We can see the model in all its richness in the Autodesk world, and we're doing that all within one application. But it doesn't just link a drawing or a design model footprint to the data in Autodesk. We can also integrate particular features within the drawings and models. So what I'm going to do now is, on the map, I'm just going to zoom into this particular building of interest, and using some of the tools available within ArcGIS, I'm going to look at a different discipline within this particular building. I'm going to look at the mechanical breakdown of this particular building. And you'll see that as I do so, it will start drawing the ducting, the pipework for the air conditioning units throughout this building. And I can click on any particular feature. So I'm just going to hand the map across a little bit and click on this air conditioning unit on the ceiling here. Through the pop-up, we can access information about that particular item. So all of the rich information that may have been in the Revit model is accessible here. But underneath, we can see that there are numerous associated documents to that particular feature. So if I open up the Revit model, again, as an example, you'll see that now it'll open up the mechanical discipline element of the Revit model. But not only will it open the appropriate model, it will also zoom to that specific object that I've selected within the map view. So we've got that kind of feature by feature integration. But we don't just have to link to models or other CAD documents. It may be things like PDF files, in this case, further specification documents associated with that particular feature, or it might be technical documents that are related to that particular feature. So whatever it is that you're storing within your Autodesk environment, it can be linked to within GeoBIM to provide easy access to all of that rich information. So now let's have a look at how we set some of this up and how GeoBIM is kind of working behind the hood, and I guess how you can even access it. So this is me just signed into my ArcGIS Online account, and from the waffle button at the top here, I can launch the GeoBIM application. Craig will talk more about exactly how this is licensed later on, but that's how you access it. And this is me now as a power user. I can go about creating a new project or opening up an existing project. So here's a project that I've already created, but I've done no setup at all so far. And the very first thing it wants me to do is set up a link to the appropriate Autodesk account. So I can choose whether I want to connect to BIM 360 or Autodesk Construction Cloud. And I can either link to all the projects that are stored within there, or I can select particular projects. So again, you can create as many different variations of GeoBIM projects as you wish, maybe project by project specific, or you might want a kind of overview of all of your projects. So these projects that we're linking to here are related to the projects that we own within the Autodesk environment. So this is me signed into BIM 360. I'm a member of 3 different projects, and so I can connect to any of those. So once we've set up that link to the account, the next thing we can do is start to automatically generate some of the features that you've seen already through the brief demonstration that I did. So the first thing you will have noticed is we had these bounding boxes on the map that represent the extent of each of the different drawings or Revit models within the Autodesk environment. And so they are generated by running this locate engineering documents tool that will essentially run through all of the files contained within a particular project of interest, and it will attempt to create the bounding boxes for those different drawings. Now, for this to work effectively, obviously those drawings need to be correctly georeferenced. So this goes back to the point I made earlier that you might need to do some tidying up or organization of your existing data for this to be effective. If you do need to improve the georeferencing of your data, then there are tools again within ArcGIS to help with that. So that will create the bounding boxes, and you can see one on screen there. And if I zoom in a little bit further on that Aylesbury here, you'll see that we've got multiple other bounding boxes at different sizes representing the extent of those different drawings. And then we also have some dots on the map here, and these are issues, again, from the Autodesk environment. So it has run through my project files, it's found out any issues, and it has georeferenced those onto the map and symbolized those as points. There are then tools within GeoBIM that we'll have a look at later on to actually create issues directly onto the map, which might be a more intuitive way of creating them. And then finally, if we are wanting to run this process for multiple projects, so you're connecting to a whole series of different project files within Autodesk, it will create a boundary for each of those projects. So you can look on the map at where all the projects that you're managing are taking place, and you can see what data sets you have for them. So we can run these tools through, and it will automatically generate some of the data for us. And then more specific links can be established using the next tool, or I'll show you this within one of the applications in a moment. And then finally, we can go about creating an application. There are 2 different styles of application within GeoBIM at the moment, one for simply viewing data and one for having a dashboard that highlights some of those issues in a more interactive way at the side. And if I were to go into create a new application, it takes me into a screen like you see at the moment, where essentially I can just set up which maps I want to use within the application, and I can change maybe the color scheme and so on, and also specify some of the tools that are going to be available within that particular application. So very simple configuration to create one of these applications. So let's dive back into a different GeoBIM project example. This is the viewer application, just to show some of the functionality that we looked at earlier, and just to highlight again how some of these links are set up. So the first thing is that we've got these bounding boxes for the different project files, and so I can click on any one of those on the map. I can highlight it geographically. It will pull up the details of what that's linked to, in this case a Revit model, and then I can open that down the side. And each of these panels is kind of resizable, so we can kind of change the layout of the screen to meet our particular requirements. So that's an example of that automatic link that's set up. And that works in 2D and 3D as well. So if I just switch across to a 3D view of it, we can still see that bounding box for that particular location. But I'm just going to zoom in a little bit further and just have a look at this building. And just to show that, as well as linking to the footprint, I can click on any feature on this building. So I'm just going to click on this wall here, and I might set up links to particular features within there. So in this case, we've got already a link to a PDF file that is just the kind of elevation, the east elevation of that building that will pop up. But if I wanted to add a new link, I can do that within here, again, subject to having the appropriate permission. So I'm just going to add in a link, and this will allow me to navigate through my Esri UK project that I've got set up. I can find a particular Revit file or PDF or DWG that I want to connect it to. In this case, I'm going to link it to this PDF file. And once that link is established, you can see that it's available in the list for me here. And then just by clicking on it, it will pop up in the viewer here. So that's how we start to set up those linkages. If we click on a particular feature, so in this case, this roof element, and we just simply link it to the Revit model, it will automatically set up the link to the specific object within that Revit model. So in this case, you can see that it then automatically will highlight that roof feature, and we can then pull up the details for it. So we can use the map as a way of, I guess, indexing information that we have within the organization and simply navigating around and finding information. But we can work the other way around as well. So if I want to find a different document relating to a different area, so I've got here, I'm searching against my Autodesk documents. I'm finding a DWG file for the HS2 Appleby site. If I click on that, I can then zoom to that location on the map. And again, we can either see that in 3D, or I'm just going to jump into 2D and zoom out, and we can see exactly where that site is. So it just allows me to quickly kind of get that geographic context to any of the data sets that I'm managing within my Autodesk environment. So I mentioned that there were two different styles of application that you can create. This is the viewer application. I'm just going to jump across to a dashboard application. And what we can see within here is, as well as the kind of map with the links underneath, I'm just going to hide those links for a moment, is that we have a dashboard summarizing information about the different issues that we have identified. So we can see that there are 7 different issues, and they're split into different causes, different issue types, and each of these panels can be opened up and explored. And by clicking on a section of, in this case, the pie chart, the map will then zoom to the extent of those particular features. So I've got 3 issues relating to client feedback, and by clicking into that, it's highlighted those 3 on screen. And then I can drill in and see the details about those particular issues. And again, all the information that's stored within the Autodesk world is instantly accessible to me here. And actually, if I wanted to create a new issue, we've got that ability here as well. So I can literally click onto the map to create a new issue, and I can fill in this form to decide what type of issue it is, what it's related to, and that will then get stored within the Autodesk environment as well. So hopefully what you've seen there is that whole process of organizing your data, setting up those linkages, and then how we can share that out to a wider audience. And I hope what you've been able to see from that is that the key benefits of the ArcGIS GeoBIM application are that you have access to all of your information on one map. You're not having to go into one system for some information and another system for others. It's all accessible in one place, which clearly makes it easier to make decisions. It improves collaboration because you can share this to a much wider audience, not just those people who have those powerful desktop tools available to them. And because it's leveraging information from both systems natively, you're not having to convert data between those different formats. So there's less need for duplicating data or reprocessing data. You can just manage the GIS data in the GIS world, the design data in the Autodesk world, and serve both up through this one application. So some of the common workflows that we see GeoBIM being relevant for are listed on screen. I'm not going to run through all of them, but you know, that idea of being able to map BIM issues actually by placing an icon on the map and saying this is where that issue relates to, and that being then stored within the Autodesk environment, being made available to everybody else. Being able to evaluate all the projects that you're working on and seeing how they're spread geographically is another example. So you might now be thinking, well, how do I get access to this? How do I start using it? And so I'm going to pass back to Craig, who will explain a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Robin. So I'm just going to take you through how we license GeoBIM and as Robin said, how you can gain access. So ArcGIS GeoBIM is currently only available as a cloud offering, a software as a service through ArcGIS Online. So ArcGIS GeoBIM obviously provides this integration between ArcGIS Online and Autodesk Construction Cloud and BIM 360. It's important to say that support for ArcGIS Enterprise and additional third-party systems is planned for the future. This is currently being worked on. However, at this time, I do not have a release date for you. We're hoping to get some clarity on that at the user conference in July, Esri's obviously global user conference in San Diego. If you're an existing user, an existing customer of Esri's and have access to ArcGIS Online, the ArcGIS GeoBIM user type extension can be assigned to any existing named user type. The GIS Professional, Standard and Advanced user types include ArcGIS GeoBIM as an additional extension at no extra charge. So if you have one of these license types, you may not be aware that you actually already have access to GeoBIM. If you are new to Esri and you do not have an ArcGIS Online subscription, then you will simply need to procure an ArcGIS Online Creator license or an ArcGIS Pro license to create your ArcGIS Online account, and then it will be an entitlement to you. On the Autodesk side, it's just worth being aware that any Autodesk named user will have access to Autodesk Construction Cloud or BIM 360. The offering itself, the user type, you can actually procure this now via our online store. So in recent times, obviously, Esri has moved to an online store, or you can simply contact your Esri UK account manager in the traditional way, and we can obviously talk you through which user type would be most relevant for your workflow and your users. Just in terms of resources then, there's a whole host of resources available to you. And I'm just going to jump out now and just kind of talk you through some of these. So you may have seen it, but very recently we released a hub site. So this is actually built on our Esri hub. And this is a site dedicated for you self-serving a lot of the content that we make available to you. So you'll just see here that there's a bulletin board that we kind of host out and release kind of latest case studies, videos, thought leadership papers. All of that type of content is there. So if I just click on the GIS and BIM link that you'll see at the top there, there's a number of tabs. This part of the site is dedicated to all of the GIS and BIM capabilities that we've talked about today. And also within here, there is some links to story maps and content specifically that's being created for ArcGIS GeoBIM. So I would encourage you, we'll send out the link with the webinar recording afterwards. I would encourage you to have a look at this. There is a specific story map, for example. There's demos within here, so you can see there's a whole host of collateral to support you getting up to speed with GeoBIM and understanding how you can use it within your business. We've also got a story map as well. So this is obviously available here. So it kind of summarizes what we've shown today, what it is, how you can get started, how you can license it. So there's, I guess, something for you to kind of physically take away as well. We also have some training on GIS and BIM. So again, one of the tabs at the top of this hub is training. Talks about all the training courses that are relevant for AEC customers, really. But again, you'll see there that there are some specific instructor-led training courses. The BIM and GIS integration for architecture, engineering, construction is one that's been specifically designed for those working with BIM and GIS workflows. The other thing to say is, if I just jump back to the homepage of the hub, I mentioned at the top of the call, our conference is only a few weeks away now. It's on the 17th of May. We are back in person at the QE2 Conference Centre in London. It's free to register. We've created for AEC customers a AEC pathway just to give you and really pull out some of the key presentations that are taking place throughout the day. Obviously, there's lots and lots of presentations. I'm sure if you've been before, you know it can be quite daunting to kind of navigate through all the presentation throughout the course of a day. So we've tried to create this pathway just to, as I say, pick out some of the presentations we think would be relevant for you. So please do have a look at that and send that to your colleagues as well. So hopefully we can see on the 17th. Just to kind of close out then and just pick up on some of the questions. So we've had a few questions in the chat. If there's any further questions, I would encourage you to type those in now and we'll do our best to answer those. So I'm just going to read out the first one, and Robin, I think this one might be for you. So what is the data management process required to link geospatial footprints to Revit models?
So hopefully you saw that process in the demonstration. So essentially you run the tool that will go through the your Autodesk project files, and it will automatically generate those bounding boxes, assuming that the data is correctly georeferenced. If it isn't, you might need to go and tidy that up. But that process is run automatically by running that tool, and you kind of run it once, obviously, and then subsequently you can run it to just look for any changes, any updates, or you can ask it to, in effect, resynchronize the entire project. So there's kind of two options there. I think somebody else asked about whether you can run it automatically or whether it has to be manually run. My understanding is that at the moment it needs to be manually run, but that's something we'll take away, is whether you could set that to automatically synchronize, because I can see the value in doing that.
Okay, thanks, Robert. The next question is the ArcGIS GeoBIM module included within the CHEST agreement for UK higher education customers? I can take that one. The answer is yes, obviously, because it's included with the ArcGIS Professional Standard and Advanced user types, you would get access to that. You do just simply need to request for that to be added into the My Esri for the CHEST agreement. So contact your point of contact within Esri UK, and we'll make sure that gets added into the CHEST agreement. So yeah, as you said, Robin, that the next one was around a similar question to the first one. Next one is how are changes dealt with in ArcGIS GeoBIM when new files are created in BIM 360 or removed that were related? So again, that comes back to that running that tool to synchronize the changes. So if you have added new items to your BIM 360, then you can run it and just look for things that have been added. If you've deleted things, then you would need to run it as a full synchronization so that it would look at all of the data again. And then it would remove, I guess, any bounding boxes relating to data sets that have been removed. So that would kind of replace and clean up the entire data set. Okay, and do you have any good examples of where GeoBIM is being utilised within the utility sector? yes, we do. That some of the first examples actually in the demonstrations that we did on ArcGIS GeoBIM were actually working with utility customers. So we had some utility customers who were part of the pilot program and the beta programs. And from that, we've obviously developed out some examples and collateral that we can share. So we'll make sure that we send some of those examples out. Again, it might be a good idea just to kind of contact your point of contact within Esri, and they can definitely send on those materials, but we can definitely send out all that information. And then finally, I think this last one is for you, Robin. Where and how are the newly created footprints being stored? Is this a new feature service within ArcGIS Online?
It is indeed. So yeah, absolutely. When you run the GeoBIM tool, when you set up a new project, it essentially creates a whole series of different items in your ArcGIS Online account, including the maps and the applications, but also a feature service that contains those the issues layer as points, as the bounding boxes, polygons, the project boundary boxes as polygons, and so they are just a hosted feature service along very similar to any other one, but maintaining those, updating them is done automatically through the tool, so you shouldn't need to kind of dive in behind the scenes at any point to play with that.
Okay, thanks, Robert. There is just one more that's come in. Are changes between BIM 360 and ArcGIS GeoBIM synchronized in real time, so that if someone updates an object in BIM 360, is that then shown in GeoBIM straight away?
So if you click on an object like you saw me do on the map and it opens up the Forge viewer, you would see the latest version of that. So if that's been updated, in terms of other types of synchronization, then it would be a case of running the tool to make sure that the polygons are updated. Or if you want to ensure that in the geographic view, you're getting the most recent view of the data. So try and think of an example. In my demonstration, you saw that I'd had the 3D model of the building, and I turned on the mechanical view and I clicked on a particular object there. For that geographic view of the data to be up to date, that would require manually updating that. And again, that's the sort of thing that could be automated, but at the moment, that's a manual process of recreating that data and publishing it to ArcGIS Online. Hope that answers the question.
Okay, I think that is all the questions we've got then. There's final opportunity if anyone's got anything else to answer, to ask Robin or myself. Now is the time. Okay, so just to say then, obviously, thank you again for joining today's session. We do hope that you're able to join us in person on the 17th of May at the conference. Obviously, you're going to see a lot more of GeoBIM. We've got some specific stuff in the plenary, which is going to be super exciting. We've also got an AEC stand in the expo area as well. So myself and all of the AEC team will be there. So please do come along, say hello. I know it's been a long time coming since we've been back in person at live events. So it'd be great to see as many of you as possible. We'll send out everything, all the things that we've talked about and all the resources and collateral. And as always, if you've got any questions, please do get in touch with us. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.